Hi, book club members. I'm Jen.
And I'm Carrie.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crack. This is episode number 50, and our book is Silent Hunters by Eduardo Albert. It is about the Carcharodon Space Marines as they hunt for a missing relic. We posted several questions on our website.
Jaws. Shark people.
We posted several questions on our website, www.wh40kbookclubcomp23032. Tangled on that one for some reason. And we encourage participation in our conversations via Twitter, YouTube, or Encrypted Vox channel. Spoiler warning, if you haven't yet read this book, go to the site, check out the post and the book, and come back here as we're going to be discussing this book from start to finish in great detail. With that, let's dive in. I will start by saying, I liked the hell out of this book. How about you?
It's complicated.
Really?
Yeah. There were things I liked about it. I wasn't feeling it.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if I was not in the right mindset for it, because I mean, if I really, it was even earlier when I was thinking about this, and I was just like, yeah, but I did like this, and I did like this, and the story was not half bad. I just wasn't feeling it. Just either didn't resonate with me or wasn't in the right mindset. I don't know. Like, I had a hard time reading it.
Interesting. I read this one aloud to my husband, and we both liked the hell out of it. Like, I can't tell you how many times we just started like giggling because of, like, in a good way, because we both really like sneaky stuff, and like when they would pull off some of their super sneaky moves, we would just sit there being like, this is amazing. Really resonated with both of us. That's interesting. So what parts stood out to you?
Pretty much anything with the stemhead Merrick. It was
great.
Just because
you saw yourself liking a junkie Drukhari.
Well, it's because he knows he's a junkie Drukhari.
Oh, yeah.
He knows exactly why he is a junkie. He knows exactly how he's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He has nothing to lose.
No. He is the embodiment of the phrase, how does that go? Like, only once you've lost everything are you truly free. Like, just the little care this man gave for anything, right? Like, the people are looking down on him and he's like, whatever. The fact that he was the only one who looked into the void glass, it was like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, because it was just like looking in a mirror. Like, yeah. Because he never saw himself as anything else. He didn't have this end goal. He didn't ever think he was this amazing whatever, which I think is one reason why he was able to be so snarky, especially to a murderous, is it witch? White? How are you supposed to say that word? Witch, okay.
Oh, Lilith Hesperex?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't care. He just, yeah. I loved everything about him. I liked the idea, and I'm fully on board with the idea that She Who Thirsts totally spat him out. I was like, whew, no, not that one. Bad taste.
Yeah.
Like, what does that say when, like, your whole existence as a chaos god is based upon wanting to devour the souls of the Eldari, but not that one?
Kind of reminded me of Jim Brewer's tequila stand-up routine.
Oh my god, yes.
So Merrick was tequila, and he had to go out.
He was tequila.
Back the way he
Not
came.
that way. Back the way you came. Yes. If you've never seen Jim Brewer's, he has this big stand-up thing on drinking, and he talks about mixing alcohol, and yeah, when tequila shows up, it's amazing. Highly recommend searching it up. Yes, that's exactly what Merrick was. He was the bad touch, which I thought that was really excellent. And we'll talk a lot more about this later, but I really liked him as kind of a window to Kimura. The idea that he was totally self-aware, unlike the rest of these people.
Well, no, because they were all thinking there were some grand people, and he was like, no, you know what? Like, we do all this stuff to appease She Who Thirsts, yet we fear her greatly. So we do all these things to help keep us alive longer stay away from her. It's just really, it's such an interesting, I guess, dichotomy.
Well, especially when you compare him to Utak, right?
Right.
Who, so that was one of the parts that first just killed me, absolutely slayed me, is when he's talking about how really well he's undergone this torture. I mean, they've kept him in a room with no one to talk to. He has lasted 3 days. Like, most people wouldn't last that long. I laughed so hard when he greets the Space Marines, and he's like, "You are so lucky to meet me."
Okay, so how they broke him, that did make me laugh. Made me laugh pretty hard. Even when he was like throwing out
super effective
the witty retorts, he's like, "If you just wanted to clean my cell, you just could have asked." And just, realizing that these people don't talk. They don't have to speak. And they don't care. And it was driving him even insane how quietly they could walk, because he couldn't even hear them coming.
Yes.
So he was almost in a sensory deprivation chamber.
Pretty much.
I mean, for Drukhari.
Well, I think even for, like, normal people, because, like, when they talk about how silent it is, and just when they described the ship and everything like that, I was like, this is not, no, I'm good. No desire to see that one. Not that I have a lot of desire to see any of the 40K stuff up close and in person, but those in particular. And they talked about how damp it was. I don't do humidity. Another thing that really stood out to me, kind of going back to the Void Glass thing, was the way that Lilith Hesperax, the baddest woman in the galaxy, the way that she reacted to seeing the Void Glass, right? Like, it's one thing to be this destructive, murderous presence who everybody fears, but when faced with this reality, and I liked the way that they faced it, that it was just this wind chasing nothing that it will never catch. I liked the idea that she just has this no, and then I'm not having fun anymore. Goodbye. The Eldari are so childish.
Yeah. I mean, if you needed more proof about the Drukhari and how they work and how ridiculous they really are, Josh Reynolds tried to make them fun. Eduardo Albert shows, no, these guys are ridiculous.
These guys are, well, yes. But, like, he took away, like, Merrick made it a little bit fun, and so did Utak to an extent, but and we'll talk more about this, but, like, he really, I felt like, pulled back look what these people are. These people are monstrous, and really, I mean, they really are so much, they remind me so much of the Emperor's Children. Right? Like, you people, apparently you learned nothing from birthing a Chaos God.
Well,
like, let's just...
No, I mean, just because that happened doesn't mean that the party has to stop, right?
Right? Like, I mean, sure, we birthed the Chaos God, but, like, who hasn't, right? Certainly know that I birthed one or two in college. I liked how much he kind of stripped it bare. Like, yeah, they're kind of fun, but they're also ridiculous. Really dug that. So let's talk about the Carcharodons as a chapter.
I do have to throw in one thing, because that's the part that did make me laugh out loud, just in showing the ridiculousness of the Drukhari. So when they're with Merrick going to Utak's house, or one of his safe houses, and they talk about how that they are the most skilled trap masters I think I want to actually write down, they're the most skilled in disarming traps. And then they talk about, well, since 90% of the slaves are dead, the traps are done. I'm like, oh, that's your skill, is that you just bring enough bodies to throw at it. That's just,
yeah.
But that was so fitting for the Drukhari, because they are so arrogant. We're the most skilled in disarming traps, but they're really not. They just throw bodies at a problem.
Well, but in that, again, there's this kind of weird dichotomy, right? Or the synchronicity, because who else just throws bodies at the problem?
Russia.
Yes, but also the Imperium.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of how they solve problems, right? Like, oh yeah, we're keeping chaos at bay. We just throw bodies at the problem. right? So it was very much this like, we're so superior to the monkey, and yet, right? Like, I think that was the other reason that Merrick was so wonderful, is that they were they're just so unaware. Like, they have zero self-awareness, except for the junkie. The junkie 100% knows, which I thought was just absolutely wonderful. But so the Carcharodons they are a reclusive chapter, to say the least. I have not read any. I know that Robbie McNiven has written some stories on them. I hadn't read them. I just knew of the Carcharodons because sharks, and also me Raven Guard, or me Night Lords.
Either way, Jen is happy.
Oh my god. We're gonna talk about that in a second. So, what did you think of them as a chapter? Like their organization, their style, I guess you would say.
Their organization confused me. And that's mainly because they use such different titles to the point that I couldn't almost tell who was who. Because they kept using... They would say Chapter Master, and then they would say Red Wake, and then they would say his real name. I'm like, I don't even know who is going on here. I like the idea.
Can we just say that, like, the Red Wake is, like, the coolest title ever? If you're a shark person, being called the Red Wake.
Or the most horrifying.
I mean, like, okay, look. I'm just saying that as many signs that point towards the Raven Guard, more of them do point towards the Night Lords, especially when your nickname is the Red Wake.
All I could think of is Jaws. I mean, you know, really the prologue, it was just like, this is not okay. I had the Jaws theme song in my head. And so I'm not talking about the original Jaws, but I saw Jaws 3 when I was 6 or 7. Way too young to see something like that. And looking, if I ever saw it again now, I'd be like, how did I find that so scary? But when you're 6 or 7 and these are like amazing special effects for the time, you get terrified easily. So even when I actually saw the original Jaws maybe much later in my adult life, and I am dying laughing at how ridiculous it is. Like, I think the part with Jaws up on the boat and they're kicking it and trying to shoot it off, and he's just going, nah, 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 nah. Like, that's like the original Nom Nom scene, right? I mean,
pretty much. Pretty much.
But just the fact that people are missing, walking through the mist, they're missing. They hear ripples in the water. Someone else is gone. Someone's face is now missing. Like, this is not okay. And then they talked about them rising out of the... Yeah, well, but Jaws didn't affect you growing up as much as it did me, no. and even Jim. But I know Jim still like this, but it's just as much as it sounds stupid, Jaws greatly impacted me as a child. Like, we would go to the beach for 1 week every summer. And up through when I was a teenager, I would still have shark nightmares the first 3 nights we were there. This is a real thing for me. As you know, as improbable as any of it is, it bothers me. Like, the back of the book. Like no. That's not okay. So that kind of, you know, upsets me more than it should. Now, the rest of the book was not like the prologue. That whole idea of, like, you know, the sharks in the water was definitely not there. But when we got to the Red Wake, I was like, oh, like, you really just aren't being, of course it is the 40K, of course they're not being subtle about it, but it was like almost like what Eduardo was doing is that he was taking like every like fear someone would have from those shark movies. And I mean like the real shark movies. I am talking about the original Jaws. I'm not talking about Deep Blue Sea and the sharks that swim backwards and that ridiculousness. But, you know, just... What?
Such a bad movie.
Such a bad movie. They swim backwards. That's how you know they're intelligent. Anyway.
That's not even the worst sin that movie commits.
No, that's true. But that's like the one that has always just been frozen in my mind as being so stupid.
Fair.
But, like, no, the ones that are just like, you know, you were out in the water and you just don't know. and you hear that music, and you're like, motherfucker, what's happening now? Or you just literally see in the wake of a boat red water. So like,
Right.
it's like, dude, that's not okay.
And it was so perfect though that would be the name
It is.
that their chapter master would have. And I thought it
It is perfect.
I
It's not
loved it,
okay.
I thought it was great. First off, so having like I lived in Hawaii for a few years, and so like I just really dig. They're basically space Polynesians or space
Yes.
Maori, right? So like
Yeah, when
that
they-
whole concept.
when they
that whole
started going
style,
through
I
the
loved,
names,
and
I was like,
oh yes,
I was like, are these extras from Moana?
it was perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, their names and the tattoos and everything. I was like, I'm 100% about this. Like, really loved that. So I want to say something about the Red Wake, though. So he had the two big lightning claws, right? At one point, he holds up one of them, and they're talking about how it's the Emperor's Mercy. One of Conrad Kurz's lightning claws was named Mercy. Mercy and forgiveness. Because he didn't believe in either, you see. Subtle. The Warhammer 40k guys,
Well,
and I love it.
But isn't the Emperor's Mercy a swift death?
Yes, which to be fair, well, it kind of depends on what day you caught Conrad. You could get that or you could
I'm
get
just
flayed
saying.
alive. Really
I'm just
depends.
saying in general. In general, not Conrad. Just in general, the Emperor's
Yeah.
Mercy.
Mercy.
Oh man, I don't know where that came from.
We're getting some Emperor's Mercy, y'all. Yes.
Is a swift death.
It is. And to be fair, I think that the sharks probably are giving you a pretty swift death. But that I was like, and then the whole way that they call their chapter or their I guess their original chapter master, their chapter founder, the Forgotten One.
Okay, is that who the Forgotten One was? Like, I got just kind of lost in their own mythology.
I really liked it. I liked the idea because obviously they're a successor chapter, so they don't have a Primarch per se, right? I mean, obviously they have a Primarch, but I liked the idea that it was the Forgotten One, and I also liked the idea that the Emperor entrusted this person. And I know that the reigning theory is that it's that guy from the Raven Guard. He's a guy and he's got a name. And it was there like 40 minutes ago, and now it's just been a long week. But I know that that's kind of the reigning theory. But I was like, okay, as a person who really wants the Night Lord thing to happen, calling him the Forgotten One, like there'd be a lot of reasons to maybe just kind of forget, right?
Forget that he was maybe one of the not traitor Night Lords.
Right? Which, I mean...
What's that word? Loyal? I could not think of the word, so I said not traitor.
the not traitors. I like not traitor. We're gonna go with not traitor.
God, words are
Like
hard.
right, but they're brutal, and I do like the whole silence thing. I liked how much they do. Again, like Warhammer 40k is not subtle, but I really like how much they embrace the not subtlety. There's probably a word. It's probably based in German that I'm forgetting right now, but how just not subtle they are, right?
Blunt.
Conspicuous. Blunt. Yeah, I mean it's like a 2x4 to the face. But I really like they talk about like the coral like structures that are in the ships and the water. Like I thought it was all super cool. I liked the whole trial scene. I liked that was very much like not happy with you. And just everything about it, just I don't know, like reading this book and
not
that whole
mad.
intro scene, I was like, I'm all about this.
We're just disappointed.
We're not angry, but we're very, very disappointed in you. I did so I loved when the seawall fell down. I thought that was amazing. But I did like when they were like, so we lost the relic because you had to do this. Like, whoopsie. Thought that was great.
Did they ever say what he did? Because if they did, I totally missed it.
How he lost the void glass originally?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, they don't actually draw the picture,
Okay.
which I kind of liked too.
Yeah, I mean,
I liked the idea that we didn't need this heavy backstory about.
No, I
"Oh,
was fine with
there I
that.
was."
But the way you were talking made it sound like they did, and I was like, well, I missed something.
No, no, and I actually thought that was, and I know that we've talked a lot about this, but I kind of like when stuff is left up to your imagination. Like, he lost the void glass. Okay, I'm gonna assume some crazy stuff went down, and whoops. But I liked that part of it. Again, keep it a little mysterious because again, the exposition fairies don't often visit us in real life.
Well, and it doesn't matter what he did.
I also kind of liked that too, that it's not important how you lost it. What's important is that you lost it.
And you've been trying to find it for the last 1,000 years and failing.
I really did like, because we've seen a lot, especially in successor chapters, you see a lot of these successor chapters that they still are loyal to the Imperium and they still help, but they've got, like, their whole identity has gotten wrapped up in this event or this concept, or, and I'm not talking about the Dark Angels here, but, like, we do see these chapters where, like, their whole thing is, well, yeah, we have this, we guard this artifact, or we hunt these people, these things. In this case, we were supposed to guard this artifact and we lost it. And it makes you wonder, and we'll talk way more, we'll talk about this later, but it makes you wonder, like, how much could you guys have been doing for the Imperium had you not wasted 1,000 years hunting this thing?
Well, I guess they were keeping the ocean world safe while they were
There was
hunting it.
that. I mean, somebody had to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, we had Tangata Manu's story and Te Kaharangi's, which I thought were both wonderful. I also liked when they reveal that they're blood brothers.
That was pretty
By the
cool.
way. That was kind of cool. He starts talking about how he, like, going on about his story, and he's like, and that's why I hate my brother. And Irea has that moment of, oh.
Yeah, because when she first asked him, like, why do you hate the master? And he's like, I don't hate him. He's my brother. You know, you don't think anything of that at first because they're all brothers.
Right. And then when you hear the story, you're like, dude, that's rough, buddy. She did ask, actually. So, were you invested in Irea and Jonah's story? Like, let's start there. Were you invested in their story?
Not really. No,
Really?
no. Like, I kind of didn't care what happened to them. I really didn't. And it didn't help that.
Can we say really quickly
Yeah.
that it's really clear that Eduardo Albert played Dragon Age? Because I kept referring to Jonah as Sandal. Every time he said
Sandal.
door, all I could hear was enchantment.
I forgot about that guy from the original Dragon Age. Right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, and then you run into him in 2, and then you run into the story, his diary in 3.
Gosh. It's been... I only played the first one once, and I know you played it multiple times.
Why you gotta throw shade?
No, it's just that it's... I'm just explaining
I
why
know.
that stuff's, like, not in my head. Actually, I was almost thinking of as Hodor, in a way. You know, hold the door.
Very similar, probably.
You know, but yeah, I could see that, you know, enchantment.
Every time I read door, I read it in that enchantment voice.
Yeah, I could kind of see that. I mean, I was curious about him, you know, with the whole thing with the doors. And it didn't take me very long for me.
What do you make of him?
So I don't know what I make of him. It didn't take me very long to figure out. It's like he's seeing the webway doors. He just doesn't know exactly how to open them entirely, which is be very useful for the Imperium to have.
Right.
But it's like, you know, Araya never gives up the father. She talks about how she, you know, gave birth in utter silence, and she, I guess, never tried to get him to take any ownership or whatever, or was this...
I kind of liked, by the way, that they never talk about who the father is, because I was kind of like, for the first, like, 3/4 of the book, I was super worried that it was going to become, like, this major dramatic reveal of who the father was, right? So I was like, oh, it's going to be, like, something really lame. And when you get to the end,
Actually,
I was like, oh.
I was afraid that it was going to be one of the Carcharodons, because I was like, Jen's
Same.
going to go off the edge if that's what happened. But no. The only reason why I'm curious is because of how he has this ability to see. Like, was this someone who snuck on board and raped her, and left? Like, that's the only reason why I have any questions about it. But to be honest, like, the whole story about, their bloodline, and they've just, the Drukhari has said they've done this blood feud. I read a Warhammer 40k short story about that exact same thing. And I wish I could remember for the life of me where I read it. I thought it was in the Warriors and Warlords book, but it's not. It's got to be in some collection of short stories, or it could be a random one-off that I purchased. God knows. But it was about a Chaos Marine who had sworn he was going to kill this Marine that had this particular progenoid. So at any time that it was reseeded and he found him, he would hunt them down and kill them. He swore it, I think, on corn. And the whole short story was he finally found, like, the last one, and he kills him, and he's like, this time he's going to take the progenoids and break the cycle so he can be free. But he doesn't do it, and he walks away instead. So that whole thing of, like, we're going to hunt them down forever, I was kind of like, I've already read something like this. I mean, I'm glad it didn't entirely focus on that. Mm. But pretty much when they brought that in, I was like, I've totally lost interest in this mother and son.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I really liked Irea's character arc. So one of the things that I really like is that and I know that I've talked a little bit about this before, but in fiction, and especially I feel like in sci-fi and fantasy especially, women, especially mothers, there's two types. There is the I'm Mother Teresa and I love everyone and I'm just a caring mother, like, who's just a constant supportive weeping willow type of character. And then there's the cold Cersei type character, right? I don't really give a shit about my kids. Or, although she really cared about Joffrey, but the other ones she was kind of like, meh. But, like, they're presented as the cold, domineering figure, right? Like, there's no in between. One of my all-time favorite character arcs, and really just characters in general, I wrote a paper about this in college, is actually Mrs. Brisby from The Secret of Nim, or The Wrath of Nim. Because we are very rarely presented with the character who does not have special powers. There's nothing special about Irea, but she loves her kid.
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to do whatever she can to protect her kid. And I like that she's kind of like this shy character. She's a human around transhumans, right? So she has this very meek and mild persona till the end, at which point she's no longer playing around. Like, no, watching her come into that,
and she becomes Mama Bear.
She does very much Mama Bear. And when you think about it, it's super cool because she becomes Mama Bear in the face of abject horror, right? Like, it's not demons or anything. It's Drukhari, who this is fun. This is a Friday night for them.
Right.
This is fun. That type of cruelty. So seeing her juxtaposed with that, and then just watching her come into this, right? Picking up Lilith Hesperex's knife and being like, I'm done. Really liked that. And you don't often see that character, and we really don't get to see it very often in Warhammer 40k. We see a lot of strong female characters for sure. But really, off the top of my head, the only other strong mother figure I can think of is probably Tona Crid from the Gaunt's Ghost series. She is also not messing around. And it's also very important to her character that she is this mother. And I did like when she laid the guilt trip on some of the Carcharodons, when she was like, you had a mother too. And they're kind of like, yeah, we did.
Yeah, especially now knowing, about, the chaplain and the librarian. I'm not going to try to pronounce their names. Okay, I'm just not.
You got a mother and take a harangi.
Yeah, sure. Okay, you lived in Hawaii. You might have had a little more experience speaking some Polynesian names than my lowly ass self ever has. But regardless, especially when you find out what happened to their mother. Because another thing also with a lot of the chapters is that they don't remember their families.
They don't.
And
And they even talk about they don't really remember them in this either. She kind of dredges up that memory, which is interesting.
Except that the twins, though, they always did.
Yes. Yeah, in Blood of Ajax.
No. I'm talking. Well, there's them too, but I'm talking about the chaplain and the librarian. They're twins, because
right.
They remembered their family.
Yes, they did. But I did like the idea that it dredges it up for them too and makes it much more present, right? Which, once you hear Teka Harangi tell his story, it's kind of like, oh, she really did hit a nerve with you then. And especially with her, and again, like the whole time that she's just trying to like fight for the life of her son, which, in case you needed a reminder, the Warhammer 40k universe is metal AF. And it makes total sense, right? Where they're like, yeah, we can't have unauthorized births because that's another mouth to feed.
Oh,
That's more supplies. Like at first I was like, well, that's really cold. And then when they start explaining it, you're like, oh, that's a good point.
I kind of thought of it, anyway, in a way, because it kind of made me think about zoos. Because, one thing I didn't think about, one time I went to the zoo with a friend, we were talking to the, the gorillas, because we got to see the new baby, and they were talking about how that they're all on birth control because they have to have sanctioned births, and they have to, because it's based on endangered species and what lines that they want to keep. So they're saying, if Washington DC Zoo, they want to breed and the perfect match is down here, then we're losing a gorilla, and it makes it sad, but that's just the way it goes. And so they said, this is because if they weren't, I just didn't think about it. It's like, if they weren't on birth control, it's like we would be overrun, and there'd be fights, there'd be lots of murders going on, people would be starving. And it's kind of the same thing. You only have a finite space,
right,
with finite resources.
It's a really good point, actually. So I never got that speech at the zoo. But I guess it's one of those things that's like in the back of your brain, you realize like, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. But yeah, never thought about it before. Totally. Yes. So, but my first thought is I was like, oh, wow, I'm like really hardcore about this. But then, yeah, as soon as they explain it, you're like, oh, that's a really good point.
And they don't even use any resources to do it. They don't even waste a bullet. Just thrown out the airlock.
Frugal chapter. But again, that idea, and I really, guys, I am a sucker for, like, I really like the dwarves in fantasy stories because they're a race that's in decline. And I really like the idea of being at like the edge of your supplies, the edge of your line, all of this. And the Carcharodons are not a thriving chapter, right? They're constantly low on resources. They have to make do with what they have. That struggle, like, hits me in my feels. I love it every time. And my husband's the same way. So like as we started reading about it, we were both like, I like these guys. But that in particular, and it must be kind of weird for the Space Marines if you think about it. Like, how long it took them to make that rule. In fact, I think Tangata Manu made those rules. Like, when they're just like, we've got to stop these things from breeding. Like, because they're so removed from all of that, right?
Right.
Yeah, when you have men and women together. But apparently the threat of death is a really good birth control. Who knew? I probably did. Anyways. So, Kimura is just lovely this time of year.
Well, at least we didn't have any walking flesh mountains this time, okay?
Okay, that's true. But look, it takes a lot for me to be like, what? In the Warhammer 40k universe? But when they're describing walking through that field, that valley, and Tangata Manu is like, oh yeah, this is ground up people. This dirt that we're walking on is just like millions of years of ground up people. I was like, what? That's not okay. That actually freaked me out way more than it should have.
I think I was, honestly, like, I don't know what they could say anymore to make me just maybe like, oh yeah, this is pretty bad. I mean, it is the Drukhari. They don't just slaughter. They pick people apart as part of fun. Like, we're just going to kill them. We're just going to slice, death by 1,000 cuts, but we're going to take maybe 1,000,000 cuts and just slice away pieces of flesh and throw it around because that's like confetti. It's fun. So, yeah, I mean, in fact, the ground is ground up people. Okay, that seems to fit. Honestly, I was still giggling over the fact that they threw a crack grenade in the middle of that room with the eyes and mouths, and then Manu caught a tooth. One of the mouths spat out. I was like, that's awesome.
That was pretty awesome. But also, like, ew. And I think, so, okay, let's look at that one book, Lucas the Trickster, by Josh Reynolds. And even in the Fabulous Bill series, they're really, I mean, they're disgusting, and they are awful. They're torturers. They're horrible people. But like, they always seemed much more like bored rich people, right?
But they also made it very clear that was like that other cabal, though. This is the cabal of the Pierced Rose. It's a little more different on this side. They're not really under Vex. I mean, they are, but they're not under his direct, purview. So it's a little different.
It is a little different, but the scene in the arena when he's describing them like moaning and shivering with anticipation, like, these people are repugnant. Oh no. She has the Rona. Someone get the shotgun. But
no, water went down the wrong pipe.
So that whole thing, though, like, I just found so repugnant because, again, you look so down on the Monkey, and yet you guys just remind me of the Emperor's Children. Like, with them feeling all this physical excitement from everything that's going on, and just how ostentatious the arena was, and not a fan. Yeah, I was a fan, but also not a fan.
It kind of reminds me of, like, if you read any of, I don't know, like early 19th century literature, and they talk about, the families with the old money that have been rich for, like, hundreds of years, and then the nouveau riche that come in. The older families always look down on the nouveau riche. Like, they don't know how to act. They don't know what's going on. And I always, that's how I see the Eldar looking at the humans, the Monkey.
Right.
There's like, we've been here for so long. You guys just have no idea. And so, yes, they're this base. But I think that's like the whole point of the Drukhari is they're just base. The natures are 100% base. But they've been around for thousands of years. Like, they're better than you, obviously.
It's nothing personal. They're just better than you.
I mean, yes, they're that fine wine that is aged on that shelf, and they've turned to vinegar by now, but they're still older than you.
There is that. And, yeah. And they do have, like... And I think that's what's so funny about them is... Okay, so this is going to be kind of a deep cut, and I apologize, but... Like, reading the arena scene, the only thing I could think of was Grey Gardens. Which, if you have never seen Grey Gardens, the Too Long Did Not Read version is that it is Jacqueline Bouvier, a.k.a. Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy. It's her family, and it's her aunt and her cousin. And the aunt and the cousin, they used to be like Jacqueline Bouvier. They were super wealthy, and they lived in Martha's Vineyard. And they were hot to trot, and then a whole bunch of stuff happens, and now they live in literal squalor. Like, they have the documentary. It's a wild ride, you guys. Highly recommend seeing it at least once, if for no other reason than to really enjoy that Martha's Vineyard accent. But that's what the Drukhari reminded me of, where they're still like acting like, oh, look how superior we are, as literal raccoons are nesting in their roof. The, of course, literal raccoons is the, God, like everything. Like, you guys, all I could think of is, I was like, you guys live like this. Like, no wonder the Eldari hate you. I like to imagine.
Well, the Eldari don't want to admit to their baser natures either, so...
That's true, too. And this is kind of... The Drukhari have to be that really awful reminder of, remember that one time that we birthed the Chaos God? Remember that one time? I remember that time. But, like, I kind of imagine them being, like, I think by the time that documentary happens, she's actually Jacqueline Onassis. But, like, Jackie O and the Drukhari are definitely the Grey Gardens family. It was just,
wow.
It's so bad. And they're just awful. And, like, so many times I'm reading this book just going, what is wrong with you people? Which
the
actually...
Drukhari?
They're Drukhari, which I actually really liked. And I think that was another reason that I liked this book so much, is that, and we had talked about this, that with, like, especially in Lucas the Trickster, it just felt like more bored rich people, which we had already kind of seen. And I don't find the bored rich people that compelling, but these guys, it actually kind of made them fun. Like, Utok was kind of fun, right? With his
I was actually kind of sad that he died.
I was too, actually. So I actually said when I was reading it, it was that scene when he's like, I've lasted 3 whole days. I was like, I love this guy. I hope all the bad things happen to him and no one else, but I love this guy.
Right?
Like, and yeah, like just the whole thing about the Drukhari, I was like, these guys are so fun. Like, I mean, I hope we kill them all, but they're fun. Like, they're a different kind of fun than the orcs, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
And just, this is everything I assumed about Kimura, I guess. Horrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrible. So let me ask you this. Do you understand the Void Glass?
Yes, as much as we're supposed to.
Do you agree with Tangata Manu's assessment of it?
Yes.
I do too, actually. So on one hand, when we started the book, I was like, if Tangata Manu, like, and I liked Tangata Manu as a character, but I was like, if he's not dead by the end of the book, I'm going to be a little disappointed. So then, but like, at the 3/4 mark, I was like, how are they going to find a way to kill this guy?
Yeah, well,
and then they came up with that.
It was only a stay of execution.
Right, exactly. And I really liked the idea of it. So he threw out an interesting concept. Because remember, he talks about, he's like, well, this is why the Emperor gave this to the Forgotten One. Because could you imagine, like, if the Primarchs were to look into this? I actually think Conrad Kurz and Angron would both be okay. They'd both be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, some of the other Primarchs, I don't know, would handle it super well.
I like Fulgrim.
Fulgrim would not handle it well.
I think Sanguinius, Dorn, and Gulliman would totally understand what they saw and be cool with it.
I think Jagatai Khan. So I think actually Jagatai Khan more than Dorn would look into it and be like, yeah, okay.
Well, Jagatai Khan would just be whatevs. Okay.
Pretty much. I think Russ too. I think Russ would be like, tracks.
I don't think so.
I don't think the Lion would do well with it.
The Lion would not do well. I don't think Russ would do that well with it. Because, yeah, he makes these comments all the time. He's like, well, I know my place. I'm the executioner, whatever. But it's one thing to say it. It's another to actually know it. And I would just be curious, like, what his soul actually shows and how he would handle that. But you're right. Yes, the Lion wouldn't handle it very well. There's no way in hell Fulgrim would handle it well. Ferrus Manus wouldn't have handled it well because it never would have been right.
So.
It's going down the charts here.
As much as I love him, I don't think Corax would handle it very well either.
No. Vulcan might.
I don't think Corax. Vulcan, I don't know. I could see it going either way. He might.
Mm-hmm.
He might. And I think
Lorgar
the thing that-
wouldn't.
Lorgar would not. He would not handle it well. Perturbo, again, my boy,
No.
would not handle it well. Mortarion, no. Mortarion go it either way.
Yeah, I could see that too. Horus. Man, that would really depend.
I don't think Horus.
That would really depend.
Horus would like it.
Before or after. 'Cause I think before he might have been fine.
See, I don't think so.
You don't think so? That's interesting.
I think, again, when you think about his fall, the fact that they basically just had to show him, oh yeah, by the way, look at the future. You're nowhere to be seen. And that dings his pride so bad. I don't know. I don't know how Horus would have taken it.
It's a good point, too.
What got me thinking about it, though, was that I really, really liked what both of the brothers saw.
I think Alfarius would be fine.
Oh, yeah. I would love to know what Alfarius would see.
But yes, you're right. I liked what everybody saw. I thought it was
all great.
Yeah, I thought it was very, extremely well fitting. It was perfect.
I liked the idea that Te Kaharangi, he's the shark, right? He's the silent killer just swimming around, but he's the predator. He's not even really, because like sharks are not protective animals, right? They're killers. And
Except
so this
for
idea,
the nurse sharks, which is why they're called
nurse sharks.
Well, that and they nurse, but there's a reason. But nurse sharks are actually very protective of their babies. Another reason why they're called nurse
very
sharks.
much so. Mm-hmm. Very much so. But with their modeling, their ship is called the Mako, right? After the Mako. But like the fact that he is just this very sleek but efficient. And if you're a Carcharodon, seeing a shark is probably exactly what you want to see. But there's a commentary right there that you're just this killer, this thing that needs to keep moving and killing to survive. But when you looked at that versus Tengata Manu, who sees this machine, which basically you're mindless. You're just killing
doing the same thing over and over.
Exactly. You fulfill one purpose. Like at that point, really like a servitor. And the fact that he's like, oh God. He handled it well, but when I read it, I was, oh man, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I think he would have been fine with no matter what he saw because he knew he was dead man walking.
Well, and once he sees what the void glass is, I did like the idea that we need to lose this again. Now, the one thing that is, I was like, but now will somebody else take up the hunt? Or will Te Kaharangi be there to be like, no, we've got other things we need to do. We'll come back to the void glass later. Never. Is that going to be his role now? Or does he low-key tell the Red Wake, we totally found it, but no. We don't want this.
Didn't they say the Red Wake would have wanted to experiment on it?
Well, it's that thing, right? Of course you would. If you tell somebody, okay, so this thing will show people their true selves. How can we weaponize this?
Or how about you just don't tell them what it does?
Right. Well, and that's another thing too, right? Is that Jonah activates it more or less.
Right. They don't know how they don't know how he activated it because only he could see the door.
Yes. So they probably could have brought it home, set it on a pedestal, and then just been real pretty.
Pretty
Nobody
paperweight.
Touch it. Right. It's a really nice paperweight. Or do you think eventually that desire to be okay, so we just spent 1,000 years and lost God knows how many brothers to find this thing. So is it possible that somebody else accidentally activates it? I don't know.
I don't know. This chapter though seems to be really beholden to their traditions.
Yeah, very much so.
Otherwise, they might have tried to remember who the Forgotten One is by now. I think honestly, I really do think that if they didn't know what it did, they would have just shut it in a vault. Like Odin's vault. Never to be seen again.
Maybe.
But I guess,
it could be.
But that was a risk that the chaplain just didn't want to take after witnessing what it could do.
He basically put top men on it. Top men.
Yeah.
So, was the ending satisfying to you? They take the rock, they put it right back where they found it. Irea and Jonah get to go live out their life on this ocean world. Tangadamanu is dead. It's implied that life will just go on for the Carcharodons. And the guy from the beginning, Tangaroa, the ocean spits him back out.
Oh, is that who he was? I kept thinking, I was like, man, that's got to mean something to me, but couldn't remember.
Okay, guys. That's probably like the first really happy ending we've gotten for humans since Knights of Macragge.
Well, yes. Yes, you are correct.
I was very happy with that because, again, I really liked Irea and Jonah's story. So, the fact that they deposited them on this ocean world. Also, potentially, like, if somebody else finds it, they can be like, nope. Just push that back. But I liked the idea that, like, this is your reward. You went to Komoro with us. You did all of these things.
You lived to tell the tale.
You know how to act. Exactly. We're going to put you on a planet where you're not going to be able to tell anybody anything about this. It's a backwater planet. We're just going to set you there. I kind of liked that. It showed a compassion that I didn't expect, especially from, like, Teka Harangi. I didn't expect him to have that type of compassion.
I didn't either, but I think, with him staying with Irea and Jonah for as long as he did, just them probably softened him a little bit, especially having to discuss his history with Manu and all that. Plus, he can't forget that if it wasn't for Jonah, they wouldn't have been able to get into the arena to save everybody. And if it wasn't for Jonah, they wouldn't have been able to stop the murder. And if it wasn't for Jonah, they wouldn't have been able to leave.
That's true. So I liked that idea that, okay, this is your reward. We are leaving you here. It was, like, not too long ago chaos infested, so there's probably, like, a lot of work that needs to be done here, and it's not going to be great. Kind of like in Knights of Macragge when they leave them on that planet. Like, you've got Tomb Kings, Necrons beneath you. The orcs are definitely going to come back at some point. It just got done. That planet had some problems. It was not going to be an easy life.
What planet in the Imperium doesn't?
Right. I mean, that's totally true. I really liked that idea. I liked that the guy who eventually remembers himself, I liked the idea that the ocean spit him back out. Kind of like Merrick.
Right. Yeah.
Although, Merrick's was a little more hardcore.
Well, yes. I mean, he was literally regurgitated by a chaos god.
So what do we think happens for Merrick next? Alone in the arena? Last man standing?
He just goes and finds those stems that Doc promised him and just goes back and hangs out with his bouquet. That's what he does. He has no illusions to anything else in his life.
Okay. You're probably right. That's not very satisfying. But
no, but isn't that kind of how it goes in Komoro? I mean,
I guess it kind of is satisfying because, that's true to his character.
And that's the happiest ending I think a Drukhari stemhead could have.
Pretty much. That, you just get to go and claim the prize that was yours. You're probably going to get to pick over whatever's left in the arena, right? And you got a badass tale to tell. People probably buying him bouquets. To tell the story again.
No one's going to believe him, but no one's going to care. And he doesn't. I don't think he cares.
No, I don't think he
As
does.
long as he gets his next hit, right?
I kind of want him to get like something else. Like I would love to see another story with him. If he popped up again, very excited.
Well, maybe he might in like a short story or something.
Which that says a lot, especially coming from me. I'm like, I would love to read a short story about a Drukari. Drukari junkie.
Yeah, I was gonna say a junkie Drukari.
Yeah. I dig him. Really dig him. But overall, I thought it was satisfying. I actually really liked that Tangata Manu. Like, yeah, you got a stay of execution, and
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, it was really weird because part of me was like, maybe I don't want them to kill him, but then another part of me was like, but then that's weak sauce if they don't.
Exactly. Like when you set up this huge trial in the beginning, had they found a way to be like, okay, we're going to let you live because you're just too valuable, that would not have been very sharky of them.
Which it kind of made me think of Gate of Bones. Just kind of how we were both so disappointed that Imperial Guard and that one Marine ended up surviving the fall. It was just like, it just kind of cheapened the whole thing.
It kind of did. And even though, I mean, survives is a strong word, she's like, she's going to need to see a Medicaid for like a really long time.
Or a therapist.
Still,
or both.
Both. Why not both? I don't know that she can ever actually come back from that. And when we talked about that, and so that made it even a little less satisfying. Like, why keep her alive when she's not gonna, like, there's not like, her future isn't very good.
Well, maybe to prove a point that, a life in the Imperium sucks.
That could be, actually. That could be, because it really do. But I liked it. I liked that he paid off in that. I just really liked the hell out of this book. It was so much fun. I really would love to see another book about the Carcharodons by Eduardo Albert. I would 100% be on board. I liked a lot of his style. And here's something I will say. Some of his prose, he had a really nice, I liked the cadence of it. I liked how sometimes he would kind of reach up a little bit with his prose, but then he would come down. It was basically the opposite of Peter Fehérváry, where he just kept like going up and up and up to the point where he wasn't saying anything anymore, and it was just pretentious. Whereas I could always follow what was going on in this, and I wasn't ever like, wait, what? Really liked his style. And I would, again...
Although, someone likes Homer's Odyssey.
Oh, yes.
As I wrote down, Wine Dark Sea. It's like, They went into a Bacchic frenzy. Wrote down where he talked about ambrosia and the lotus flower. I was like, okay, someone likes Odyssey.
I really liked it. But yes, you are correct. But like we got it because it was a new book, and them's rare, which we're going to talk about in a second here. Them's rare right now during the COVID times. New author, new book, new chapter we haven't read anymore.
I mean,
I cannot tell you how much I love this back. By the way,
I loved his writing. Absolutely, I really dig his writing. It was a good book. It just wasn't for me. This isn't like the Spear of the Emperor, where I just really didn't like it. I mean, it's like, I haven't said anything bad about it at all, except for, yes, I've seen that one plot device before. But then again, if you read enough, you're going to see repetition anywhere. But it just didn't feel it.
I think that was like me with Lucas the Trickster. Good book. It was fine. I just wasn't feeling it. Wasn't grabbing me. So, and I think that happens. And I do like when you're like, no, it's a good book. It's just not grabbing me, as opposed to, I really did not like this book. It's a little bit better of a feeling. So that one, super excited about it. But now Black Library has forced our hand. We must dig into the Wayback Machine to find a book. Which is why we've learned our lesson.
This is true.
We are not going to be reading the entirety of the Ahriman Omnibus. We are going to break it into the books. We are starting with the first book in this, Exile. Carrie should be thrilled. We're going to read Her Thousand Sons.
You bought this book way before I did.
You
bought this book like way before I did, so...
Oh, yeah.
You've been wanting to read this, too.
Yeah, this book, you guys, I don't know when the omnibus came out, but I think it's basically been sitting on my shelf since it published. Yeah, now we're both going to the copyright page.
Where are you? There you are. 2018 was when the omnibus came out, but Exile first came out in 2013.
So, and I do vaguely remember the book coming out, and I think at the time I was kind of like, oh, I don't really like The Thousand Sons. But then in 2018, that makes sense. That actually tracks of when I would have purchased this. I remember picking it up, thinking, oh, that's cool. Also, I mean, Ahriman's kind of interesting. I just never got around to it. It just kind of went onto my stack of shame. So this is actually kind of cool because we're going to start tackling our stack of shame. But if we learned nothing from the Magos, it was an omnibus is a little hard for one episode.
Well, but the Magos, to be fair, was a book and a lot of short stories. I mean, this is 3 books and a bunch of short stories. So I see this as more along the lines of if us reading Fabulous Bill like back to back to back to back to back.
Yes, that too. Yes, that is. I think that is one thing too. Is that by the time we got to the 3rd Fabulous Bill book, we were kind of over Josh Reynolds' style. We were over Fabulous Bill. Like, we were just over it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to do that disservice to John French. So rather than reading 1, 2, 3, boom, 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 I think we're going to break it up throughout the year.
We're going to
a little bit in the room.
We're going to try anyway, just with that. We don't know when the next new book's coming out. We were hoping to save Astorath, Angel of Mercy, for when the hardback came out, but now that we don't know when that's going to happen, we're probably going to have to tap into that much sooner than we planned. I mean, this is just...
It's a hard life.
Yes, it's a hard life it's a struggle, all right? You got to feel our struggle for which books we're going to read. The struggle is
so real.
Please pity us as we try to figure out what books to read.
Insert Kim Kardashian crying gif here.
Have you ever had a salad with pears in it? Anyway.
Did that reference?
All right, so anyway, thank you guys. I'm wrapping it up. Hope that's cool with you.
You are wrapping it up.
I'm wrapping it up. All right, so you've been listening to the Warhammer 40k book club episode regarding Silent Hunters by Eduardo Albert. Be sure to join us for our next book, Ahriman Exile by John French. We are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and podcast on our website, www.wh40kbookclubcomp23032. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those things to the vidcast on YouTube or the podcasts anywhere you get podcasts. Don't forget, we also have a Patreon where we offer 2 different tiers of content for your viewing and listening pleasure. You can learn more about that at patreon.com/wh40kbookclub. Our site also has articles about our adventures in reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside of the book club books. So please stay a while and read from a crag. I'm Alfarius, people. Just accept it.
Reading the Alfarius Primarch book right now, I am not Alfarius. And I'm comfortable with it.
But you have...
Chartreuse. Get you some chartreuse. Improve your room's decor by 25%.
It's a fact. Science. Look it up. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
This episode of the Warhammer 40k Book Club was hosted by Jen Bozier and me. Recording and editing of both the vidcast and podcast were done by me. The book club questions and discussion format were done by Jen, and all of our music is by Jingle Punks. The Warhammer 40k Book Club is a Warhammer LLC production. This is a Voxcast that even he, Cato Sicarius, would approve.